That's the beauty of classical music. This music has resonated over centuries.
Chopin speaks directly to the heart.
There was a TV show on a few years ago, and I'll never forget, this girl was listening to Chopin, and she was realizing that her life didn't have as much meaning. It helped her realize there are finer things to look at. Don't accept what you get every day. There's beauty in the world. If you stop and really listen to Chopin, you can't do 10 other things. If you're going to listen to it, you have to listen to the music. But when you do, it's very rewarding.
My name is Joshua Izzard, and I'm the CEO and Administrative Director of Nashville Chopin and Music City Chopin. I was born in a small town in Wyoming. My mother loved classical music. She took me for Suzuki violin lessons. I found that I absolutely loved music. And what I loved was when I heard my mother practicing on our upright piano. And I remember having gone to a couple of lessons with her, and she was like, "Do you want to have a piano lesson?" And I said, "Yes." And so I got my first couple of lessons. I went on to study at the Moscow State Conservatory, and it was very much a career direction for me, something I wanted to be involved with for a very long time. Now I'm actively involved with finding the most promising young talent.
I heard this boy from China who was 8 years old, and he was playing a Chopin nocturne, and it brought tears to my eyes.
Every new generation will interpret it in a way which is relevant to the times, if you know what I mean. So even though we're always trying to interpret music the way the composer wanted, we can't help but give it a flavor of our contemporary lives. My name is Charles Olivieri Munro. I'm a Canadian conductor. The second half of my life has already been spent in Europe, predominantly, Prague, Czech Republic. That's where I went to do my postgraduate studies, and it's where I started my career as a conductor. My career has taken me across 5 continents. I've traveled all over the place as a guest conductor of orchestras around the world, and most recently with Chopin Nashville. Graciela Kowalczyk asked me if I would be so kind to help her promote, and I suggested to her, since I was free during those days, if she didn't need another judge on the piano competition. And she said, "Wow, would you really?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." So I came along. I was the only judge that was a non-pianist, even though my background is as a pianist as well.
Nashville is known for country, but they're some of the best classical musicians in the world living in this town.
I'm proud to say that I think that Nashville Chopin is a significant portion of the recent growth and popularity in classical music in Nashville, and I know that the people that we are bringing to Nashville have an influence on it becoming a classical music center. But there's also an interesting cultural shift with the increase in global exposure and cross-cultural, I would say, intersectionalism. You're finding people who grew up even with R&B or with country or with heavy metal, realizing that so many of the harmonies and so many of the techniques and the rhythms and the melodies, all of that came from classical music. That's why I think that people are expanding their horizons and they're seeing this incredible universe of classical music that is actually the basis of all other music. And Nashville, of all places, as Music City, has always welcomed what it doesn't know. It has adapted to it, and it has made it its own. And I think it's really great to be centered in this place where classical music is growing.
Nashville is such a musical city, even though it's predominantly country music, but we're seeing that increasingly people here also really appreciate classical music because, as I said before, it stands the test of time.
Classical music at one time was kind of pop music. Pop music is such a funny thing. It's not a sensational thing. It's really more of a spiritual connection. Music is music, and either it speaks to you or it doesn't. About 30 years ago, I said, the rap music that was on the radio, I said, that will become country. And it's happening. Right now, you're hearing a lot of influence from rap music and country music.
It isn't that music becomes classical music. Rock music is rock music. It's a different genre. It's a different type of music. Country music, country music. Jazz is jazz, and classical is classical. There's a different approach to it. It's just a totally a different genre. So classical music involves opera. It involves symphonies. It involves piano concertos. Country music isn't about opera, right? It isn't about symphonies. So you understand it's a whole different kind of a category of music making and music performing.
Some of the great classical pianists of the past talking about how much they enjoy performances from musicians of other genres. In fact, one of the greatest classical pianists of all time, Vladimir Horowitz, I believe said that one of the only pianists that struck fear in his heart was the incredible Art Tatum, one of the greatest jazz pianists of all time. Classical music serves as the basis for all other later genres of music, such as jazz, such as R&B, such as even heavy metal. And I have seen a lot of cross-collaboration where you have the wonderful creativity of newer genres of music wanting to collaborate with the underlying technical and emotional, harmonic and textural mastery of classical musicians. And when the two come together, it creates this incredible tapestry, this weave that is a completely new and innovative sound.
There will be a certain flavor of a contemporary life in the way they will interpret the music. But ultimately, the goal is of a conductor to always interpret the music with the idea of how the composer heard his music, right? We don't know, like we only have a sheet music in front of us, a musical score to go by. That's our map, that's our Google map to, to recreate the music. How loud should it be? How soft should it be? How fast should it be? There are some indications, but there's a lot of room. You can imagine there's a lot of room for interpretation.
The thing about being a performer is you get to perform. It's something you're doing on the spot. I was listening to the players last night. I was watching Charles conduct, and a lot of it is thought through and pre-formatted, and we're going to go this direction. There's a roadmap on how we're going to handle everything. But then the spontaneity of the moment, the tone that they're getting, the way the room is reacting, the feel of the audience, it's all a symbiotic thing, and it's all happening at the moment. So you should play a classic piece of music like it just was written yesterday.
Chopin, when you are a pianist, is by far the most difficult composer to perform because it allows for no artifice. There's no way to cover up any technical problems you might have. There is nothing you can do. His music is very demanding because it is very emotionally committed and is very transparent.
Chopin did not have an instrument like this to play on. It was almost like a little chamber instrument, a little bit better than a harpsichord. Now you could hear it on something like this grand instrument here. It makes a big difference.
So one of my favorite programs of Music City Chopin and Nashville Chopin is Piano Rainbow. This program donates beautiful Yamaha pianos to Metro Nashville Public Schools. We select the most under-resourced schools that are lacking musical instruments, and therefore the basis on which to teach students music. On top of that, we are preparing the pianos and helping students create these living murals, decorate the pianos in the vibrance and diversity of their communities, and they can study on them with teachers that we are providing. But also, the pianos are visually inspiring because they remind the students of the power of what they can do with their own hands, the beauty of their communities, and how they are raising up and creating.
I think it's great. You got to start with the kids because they're gonna influence all of their generation. You know, the older you get, you can either decide to go and learn, or you can decide to just stay with whatever you have. Just listening to music is the second best thing you can do for your brain. Playing a musical instrument is by far the number one thing for your mind. It is like getting a mental massage every time you play an instrument. We have a lot of children starting, and it's so good for their grades. It's great for their self-confidence. We have a lot of adults that are getting into it that are having a very stressful life, and they want something to go into. When you're playing a piano, you can't think of anything else. You're focused in playing that.
We are working to put together festivals and competitions and community events and charitable programs and education programs. We're working to help individuals understand just how much better students who study classical music perform in their STEM subjects, how good their study habits and work habits become.